Within the course of this PowerPoint, we will discuss when and in what manner is it ethically permissible to end the life of a terminally ill patient. There are two types of euthanasia, passive and active. Passive refers to letting someone die. This includes ceasing or not starting medical treatment that keeps a person alive, such as a respirator or provision of food and water through a tube. The three types of active euthanasia include voluntary, involuntary, and non-voluntary. Voluntary is a form of active euthanasia that is performed at the request of the patient. Involuntary is another term sometimes known as mercy killing, or taking the life of a patient who has not requested death with the intent of relieving suffering. Non-voluntary euthanasia denotes euthanasia that takes place even though a patient is not competent to give consent. Going down through the history of euthanasia, all the way back to the ancient Greeks and Romans, the word for euthanasia in their culture literally meant good death. In Athens, they allowed a dose of poison for those who were suffering terribly and wanted to die. On the other hand, Pythagoreans believed that only God had the right to take life. So even in the ancient times, there was disjunction of belief of what should be done about taking one's life. The Middle Ages were heavily influenced by the Catholic Church, who condemned and excommunicated those with suicide attempts. The only killing that they saw permissible was killing used as self-defense, which would not be suicide killing, it would be killing in manners such as war. In pre-World War II era, there was a program called Action T4, which was the first Nazi program of mass murder, trying to restore integrity of society and getting rid of life that was unworthy of life. That is definitely not our own words, but what they believed. And during this program, they killed about 5,000 German children as a result of their mentally or physically differences in deformities or mental disabilities, which was horrendous. Today, euthanasia is legal in the Netherlands, Belgium, Switzerland, and Luxembourg. And physician-assisted death is legal in 5 states, including Oregon, Washington, Montana, Vermont, and New Mexico. In current events, the physician-assisted death happened to Brittany Maynard, and this was very recent, suicide of a patient suffering from a terminally ill disease, and she took lethal drugs provided by her doctor so that she could end her own life and not continue in her suffering. Here's a voice recording of her testimony before she tried to pass away.
So if November 2nd comes along and I've passed, I hope my family is still proud of me and the choices I made. And if November 2nd comes along and I'm still alive, I know that we'll just still be moving forward as a family, like, out of love for each other, and that decision will come later.
She was 29 years old, and she had terminal brain cancer. In April, she was given 6 months or less to live. Mid-year, Brittany made the decision to move her family from California to Oregon to access the state's Death with Dignity Act. It provided an option for her to take her own life medically.
People criticize me for not waiting longer, or whatever they've decided is best for me. It hurts because really I risk it every day, everything that I wake up. And I do it because I still feel good enough, and I still have enough joy. Well, if all my dreams came true, I would somehow survive this. But I most likely won't. So beyond that, having been an only child for my mother, I want her to recover not break down, not suffer from any kind of depression. And my husband is such a lovely man. I want him to, I understand everyone needs to grieve, but I want him to be happy. So I want him to have a family. And I know that might sound weird, but there's no part of me that wants him to live out the rest of his life just missing his wife. So I hope he moves on and becomes a father.
So there is a personal anecdote of physician-assisted death. To view euthanasia, we decided to look at it through 3 viewpoints, including medical bioethical, spiritual social cultural, and legal political. The medical bioethical view includes taking the environment into consideration and what is best from a global perspective. So looking at the debate, wasting medicine and wasting money. If a person does not want to take medicine, knowing they will die soon because of it, then that is their choice. The medical perspective would say that for those who do not want to live any longer, there is no point in wasting money and medicine that could go to other patients who could potentially outlive their sickness and contribute to society. This stance would be considered passive euthanasia. In the Islamic worldview, if there's someone who wants to refuse medical treatment to get better, then that is completely permissible. This contrasts Christianity because Christians believe that they should fight for every second of life that God has given. Looking at euthanasia from a medical bioethical perspective, money and resources do not matter as much as ethics. So keeping the patient alive equals keeping the paycheck alive. This view states that each individual matters and dying is not your choice. Medicine was made for the sick and to help prevent people from dying so soon. It should be used to its full potential, no matter the cost. The Christian worldview states that the life of each person is priceless. It can never be replaced by another human being. Psalm 31:15 says, "Your life is in God's hands, not your own." So what is the legal political view? It's looking at euthanasia from the legal system and political systems which have been established by our government. So the debate is, we cannot control people's rights or their want to die. Liberals believe euthanasia should be legalized. A person has a right to die with dignity by their own choice. They also believe that if euthanasia is legalized, it could save money for people who could actually benefit from these medical practices. They say that if it isn't against the law, then who cares what they do with their own lives? Against it from a legal perspective, no one should have the right to take another person's life. Conservatives play a huge role in the political idealism against euthanasia. Student News Daily reports that conservatives believe, quote, "It is immoral and unethical to deliberately end the life of a terminally ill person," which is euthanasia, or enable another person to end their own life, which is assisted suicide, end quote. Conservatives say that there's no person that has the right to end another's life. Looking at euthanasia from a spiritual, social, cultural view, we look at it with religious views, morals, and ethics, looking and using items such as the Holy Bible. The argument supporting euthanasia is found in the religion of Hinduism. In this culture, Hindus have a ritual known as Prayopavesa, which means fasting to death, and in certain circumstances is a tolerable method for someone to end their own life. It is an extremely gradual process and is centered on feelings of serenity, whereas suicide is viewed as a negative term. This ritual is strictly for individuals who have fulfilled all responsibilities of this life and lack ambition or desire to continue their own life. So the opposing view of euthanasia would be the Christian worldview, which argues that euthanasia should be centered on what the Bible says about it. Christians believe that each and every life was created by God on purpose for the Lord. Therefore, God has ultimate authority over our lives, and He and only He can decide when that purpose has reached its conclusion. Christians believe that though an individual's suffering, that person, in fact, draws closer to God and finds a deeper level of intimacy with Him through their suffering. Suffering is not viewed as meaningless and has value, according to Scriptures. Because life is given by God, it is viewed as a precious gift. So, what specifically does the Bible say about euthanasia? In 1 Corinthians 6:19-20, it states, "Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own, you were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies." Continuing, Ecclesiastes 8 says, "So no one has power over the time of their death." Ecclesiastes 3:1-2 says, "There's a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die." And the most obvious verse that pertains to death and taking a life is found in the Ten Commandments in Exodus 20:13. "Thou shalt not kill." Christian worldview would take that very literally, and it would pertain to killing oneself as well. Chuck Colson, who is an evangelical Christian leader and founded Prison Fellowship and Breakpoint, stated this: "One of our major problems as Americans today is that we want only the joy, not the sorrow. Many of us mistakenly believe that life is life only when it is healthy and comfortable. But God knows better. To make us whole, He makes sure that we experience every season, not only the springtime of youth, but also the austerity of winter." To answer the question, when and in what manner is it ethically permissible to end the life of a terminally ill patient, we, as a group, took on the Christian worldview. As Christians, we believe that the Bible is both authoritative and relevant to our lives today, and provides the basis for our ethical thinking. Though the law explains God's will, it does not empower our obedience, so we must take hold of it ourselves. So, we believe what the Bible states is true and right, that we should not take our own life, that we should not kill, as was stated in the verses described earlier in this presentation. Even in taking the stance of biblical truth, there is some gray area of when it is ethically permissible to end someone's life. We hold to the belief that each life and circumstance with the possibility of euthanasia is unique. Though we most identify with the spiritual perspective to conclude our opinion of the issue, we agree that all viewpoints, including medical, bioethical, and legal political, should also be considered. If another life is being pulled to death financially or physically due to the increasing fatality of a dying person, euthanasia could potentially be permissible. This would pertain to a situation where a person has been stuck in a coma for longer than the doctors have ever seen revivable, and the family cannot afford to continue paying life support. In most cases, as with Brittany Maynard, we believe that people should fight for their own life and not give up. In Maynard's case, which is heartbreaking, we believe her family could have supported her better in encouraging her to fight for her life longer. Though it is a difficult task to tell someone to continue in pain, it is for the betterment of the family as a whole to experience suffering. This is because those who suffer grow together, stronger. We believe this is how the Bible has explained the value of life and approach to death. Therefore, we hold fast to our belief of the Christian worldview that euthanasia is only permissible under extremely rare circumstances that involve long-term comas for terminally ill patients.